Boarders from across the nation are coming to town this weekend for the ChattaJack race. It is a 31-mile race from Coolidge Park to Hales Bar on Nickajack Lake. The race begins bright and early, 8 a.m. Saturday morning, and of course, for the uninitiated, the racers will actually all be standing up on their boards as they paddle down the river. Joining us now is Ben Friberg. He's kind of the godfather of paddleboarding. You've actually taken a trip from the Cuba to the Florida Keys on a paddleboard, standing up. Crazy, huh?
Yeah, that was a fun adventure.
We're going to talk about that in a minute, but first let's talk about the ChattaJack race. This is actually the second event. It's downtown Chattanooga, and it's Saturday morning, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it is.
Now, how many people are going to have coming out for this event? Is this going to be a big deal, you think?
Yeah, we've almost quadrupled this year in numbers. We've got right around 140 people coming from California, Canada, British Virgin Islands, the Northeast, all over the East Coast and Southeast and Midwest.
Now, I mentioned paddleboarders, but it's also not just paddleboarding. There's canoeists, or I guess, is that the right term, canoeists?
Yeah, there's actually quite a few divisions. There's stand-up paddleboarders, there are outrigger canoes, there are kayaks and surf skis, a lot of different vessels that will be out there.
And it's all a race, and you actually can get some prizes as well, right?
There are prizes, yeah. There's some neat things that we're giving out this year.
Can you give us an idea of some of the prizes that are given out there?
Each division has its own awards. We have a lot of prizes that are kind of geared for cold weather paddling. Two of our really cool prizes that we have this year from DJI and Atlanta Hobby are actually quadcopters for flying GoPro cameras. So it's like remote control helicopters for flying cameras. So those are some of the neat prizes that we have this year.
Now, Ben, you've been doing this a while. What gets someone to decide, you know what, I want to try and stand up on a board and see if I can actually make it through the river? What makes someone try and do this, you think?
I think it's just a love of stand-up paddling. People get started in the sport, and it's kind of like running. Sometimes you like it, and then you're like, I want to push myself and go a few extra miles, and then the next thing you know, you may find yourself an endurance athlete and doing something like ChattaJack, where you're going to go and race or paddle 31 miles.
Now, did you ever think that you wanted to do canoes, or were you always paddleboarding?
I enjoy a lot of different vessels. I like kayaks. I have done the course on an outrigger canoe before, but stand-up paddling I really enjoy. It's just the freedom, you know, when you're standing up, it's just a nice way, and then the perspective. It's a great way to spend some time on the water. Now, we've got a lot of people. You said 140 entries so far, right? So we've got a lot of people. Now, what about if you wanted to come down and watch this? Is this open to the public to come down and watch you guys do this as well? I would encourage people to come. If you're in Chattanooga that morning, it is going to be a historic visual to see that many of these vessels lined up. They'll be right between Walnut Street Bridge and Market Street Bridge, and they'll all be shoulder to shoulder pointing downstream, and it will look like a scene from a medieval movie where all these things are just like geared and ready to go, and then boom, they take off, and it will look really awesome there right at 8 o'clock. And then if you wanted to go out there and in the gorge, in the Tennessee River Gorge, and watch these guys go out, it'll be really cool. One of the things that you'll see, it's a lot like the Tour de France, where you'll see all these bikes where they're drafting one another, and you may see a draft train of 10 people all just, and they're inches from one another, and they're, you know, taking advantage of the person who's in front, who's, you know, breaking the wake, and even creating a little bit of a bump for that person to ride behind them. So it's some neat things to see for a spectator, or they can go to Hales Bar Marina and see the finish line. Now, do people ever wipe out, so to speak, or fall off while this is happening, or not? I mean, it's not like you talk bike races, people fall down sometimes. Yeah, most of these folks in this race are not going to fall down, and it's going to be a chilly morning, so they're going to really do their best not to fall. Yeah, it's cold. So there's not a whole lot of falling. There probably will be a couple falls, and so we actually have a fun award. We've got an inflatable life jacket, so whoever falls down the most, they actually win an award. Well, there you go. Well, let's talk about your trip you went from Cuba to the Florida Keys, and you had to get permission from the federal government first to be able to even do that, from the U.S., right? Yeah, the U.S. federal government, that was a challenge, and took a long time to get those permissions, as well as the permissions from Cuba, because we did go soil to soil. What's it like in Cuba for people who've never been there? It's amazing. We were in Havana the whole time, and the cuisine, the architecture, the people there, it's amazing. And probably a once-in-a-lifetime thing, because you're not going to get a chance to go back without the government's permission, right? That's correct. Yeah, we were very fortunate. Were you happy to be able to set that record? I know some friends here we talked to after you did it, they said, we weren't surprised that Ben did it at all. Oh, yeah. I mean, talked to Jeff Stiles, actually. From the Oh, yeah, Jeff has been a long time friend of mine. I was just very grateful that I had the opportunity to try it. All right, Ben Friberg, thank you very much. Good luck on the second annual ChattaJack. It's this weekend, downtown Chattanooga. Check it out on the river. And we'll be right back in just a minute, so stay with us.